Welcome, everybody, to the first official Salty Nerd live stream on YouTube. Welcome to the show. We are going to be discussing Star Trek Lower Decks, and I am joined, as always, by my illustrious co-hosts, Matthew Kadish, author extraordinaire and evil genius. Welcome to the show, Matthew.
What's up, Boo?
And I'm also joined by
the
Dark Lord himself,
What a jerk.
Matthew Vader. What's up, dude?
Hey, you know what's the best part about this?
What's that?
Is no pants.
We're doing this pantless.
No pants.
So in my defense, Matt, you haven't called Alex your boo in a long time.
Yeah,
now.
but you stole it. That's okay.
Before we get started, I wanted to remind everybody you guys can help us out by liking and subscribing. If you're watching this, help grow our YouTube channel. We're looking to expand. We've been in the podcast game for a while now, so we're moving over to YouTube to try to expand our audience. So if you like what you see, if you like what you hear during this video, like and subscribe and share the video. Thank you. All right, let's talk about Star Trek Lower Decks. Matthew Kadish, what is this show all about? Why don't you give the listeners a little, I don't know, what do you call it?
Set the stage.
Yeah, set the stage for us for this TV show.
We usually do. All right, so basically the show, it's one of the Kurtzman era Star Trek series. It's their first animated endeavor. And this, unlike the other animated show that they're working for, which is geared more towards kids and Nickelodeon, I believe, this is an adult animated series more in the vein of like Rick and Morty. And it's meant to be a little bit more lighthearted, a little bit more comedic than the typical Star Trek show. And basically, it's been in development for a while now. I remember when we were at the Star Trek convention last year in 2019, they had a panel on this, and they were talking about how they're doing like character designs and getting all the animation and stuff together and writing the episodes. And so like it just finally came out now. So it's been in development for like I think a couple years ever since Kurtzman kind of took over things. We had Star Trek Discovery, we had Star Trek Picard, we have Star Trek Section 31, something like that, and Star Trek Lower Decks. And those were like the four kind of Kurtzman shows that were in development.
Yeah.
And now that Star Trek Picard has finished its first season, next up in the pipeline was this show, which got released last Thursday. And this is the start of, I think they said like 27 days of Trek or something like that. So this show is going to be released weekly on CBS All Access. And then when this show's over, we go into season 3 of Star Trek Discovery. But this basically is a show about the crew of these Star Trek starships that you never get to see. They're like the grunts, the ensigns, the people who are like work on the lower decks instead of on the bridge.
On the bridge, yeah.
And it's meant to be kind of like a workplace comedy akin to The Office in a way. And it was actually kind of interesting because there was a plot for a show developed by the people who did the It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia show, where it was basically this. It was like the life of a Starfleet crew when they're not going on missions and adventures. It was just kind of like their what they do in their day.
Yeah.
And I think that like that show never really went anywhere, but I think Kurtzman kind of took that idea and applied it to the lower decks. But we've got some interesting voice talent associated with this show. Jack Quaid from The Boys, who's also Randy Quaid's and Meg Ryan's son, I believe. He plays Ensign Boymer.
Boimler, yeah.
Boimler.
Everybody seems to have an issue with that name. It's kind of funny.
Yeah. But the guy who is kind of responsible for this show, he was the co-director of the Venture Brothers show on Adult Swim. So it's got a little bit of a pedigree to it. So pretty much we're following the adventures of 4 lower decks characters, how they, what they do on their daily assignments, how they interact with each other. And it's kind of cool because judging from the first episode, it's kind of that aspect of the show is counterbalanced with, a typical Star Trek: The Next Generation type plot where, something happens and the command crew is dealing with it, and through proximity, these characters get to deal with it too.
It's almost like they're dealing with not necessarily aftermath, but just like the side effects of what's going on in the main crew, the bridge crew doing their thing. We're just seeing like.
Oh, there he goes. He's gonna be so mad.
I knew this was gonna happen, man.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
I like the idea that we're seeing the bridge crew from a different perspective now, because we're, and that was one of the faults of Discovery, was the character that we followed wasn't the captain, but they were on the bridge, so it had that weird dynamic to it where you didn't know who to root for. Really, that's one of the issues with Discovery. I think this show kind of got around that by, you're not on the bridge, you're just kind of like looking at it from a different view, and it helps. I think it helps connect to the characters a little bit better, where you're not expecting them to be the leader. You're just watching how they react to what the leaders are doing. So I kind of like that idea. What do you guys think of that?
I've always kind of been interested in the show of what the peons are doing down there on the lower decks of the ship, for sure. I don't know if this is the show, but I've always wanted to see that. I like the the hallways with the crew quarters with the bunk beds lined up against each other, and it makes sense that not everybody in the ship has their own luxury suite attached to the saucer section. So
yeah.
Well, that's also pretty realistic in terms of working on an actual ship, because a lot of the crew, like you have the command staff who get cabins, but the actual crew members just have bunks, and they have communal areas that they all live in, but they just sleep in these kind of cubby holes. So it's pretty realistic.
Let's discuss the characters themselves. Kadish, I know you have a little slide.
Let's do the episode synopsis first. Let's talk about what this episode was, and because this is the premiere episode of the series, so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the plot of this episode. Then we're going to go into each individual character, and then we'll start talking about our thoughts on the show and what the what the review is, basically. So for this episode, the premiere episode, we're introduced to all the lower decks crew and, to a certain extent, the command crew. And basically, we're on the USS Cerritos, and Ensigns Mariner and Boymer run into difficulty on a planet called Galar, where they're doing second contact. And as they're on the surface of the planet, a space virus infects the crew of the Cerritos. And so you got this plot of very Star Trek plot of this deadly virus spreading throughout the starship, while our main characters are on the planet trying to deal with issues down there. So that's basically, that's basically the plot of this episode. And it was called Second Contact because the Cerritos, unlike a starship like Enterprise, which goes out and initiates first contact because they're on the front lines of exploring the galaxy, the Cerritos is like the cleanup crew. Like once first contact has been made, they come in and kind of establish, okay, like here's how you contact the Federation, and here's our ambassador and stuff like that.
I like the voiceover work that one of the characters was like, we just kind of file the paperwork and make sure everything's set up and ready to go and help these people get established. So I'm like, that's something that we don't really see because we're always following these main flagship people who lead the charge. So it's another aspect of Trek that we haven't really visited all that much.
Very true.
One of my favorite episodes of old school Next Generation was that episode called Lower Decks, where we got to follow around some of the ensigns of the ship. So
yeah, and it's funny because Babylon 5 also did an episode like that where they followed around the janitors of the space station for like a whole episode, and you kind of saw stuff happening through their eyes, and they'd be there like just talking about their lunch and like mopping up a floor while like there's this huge space battle raging outside that you can see through the window. It was pretty funny. All right, so that was the basically synopsis of the first episode. These are only half-hour episodes, 24 minutes technically, so they're not very long. But I think that they're a good length for the type of show that this is, which is really more of like a sitcom comedy type thing. So let's talk about the characters now. And we're going to go through them one by one. Let me share my screen here. All right, so first up, the main character of the show is the USS Cerritos. And I almost want to call it the USS Dorito or Cirrhosis or something like that.
You were mentioning before the show, this is a California-class starship, and it's actually named after a town in California, which I think is also stolen from the Orville, because the Orville is the same thing, correct? There's a town in California called Orville.
No, well, Oroville.
Oroville, okay.
Yeah, I don't know if the Orville was actually named after a town in California, but basically the joke here is that because it's a California-class starship, apparently California-class starships are just named after everything in California.
Yeah, there's a couple different little what are those? Where they drop like cool little things in the show?
Easter
You
eggs?
might not know. Yeah, there's a couple little Easter eggs in the show, like in the captain's quarters, in her room off of the captain's quarters. I don't know what I'm talking about. She has a California flag that's all ripped and tattered that's framed on her wall.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't notice that.
Yeah, there's cool little stuff like that in the show sprinkled in.
You were also saying something about the actual shuttles in the shuttle.
The shuttles are all named after national parks in California.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting because, like, if you look down here, this is where the shuttle bay is.
Yeah,
on the ship, which is kind of weird. But you got the main saucer. In fact, in the show, they kind of show when they're taking the tour, they kind of show like a printout of the ship. And they give you a lay of the land where like everything is, like, here's where the bridge is and stuff like that. And like, oh, we're all the way down here.
We don't care about anything above this line.
Yeah, pretty much. But so it is interesting. Like, there's a lot of California references. Like, I think Boimler. Is that
Boimler?
Boimler.
Okay.
So Boimler, he's from California as well. So he's on a California class starship named after a small town in California. And all that stuff. So it's very California centric. Starship here. But it's interesting because it's a different type of ship from something like the Enterprise, which is a Constitution class, I believe. Galaxy class.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know. It depends on which movie you're watching, I think.
Yeah. Vader, do you know what class the Enterprise is?
Man, you're putting me on the spot. It's a Galaxy class.
Well, you're our resident Star Trek expert.
Oh, I don't have my book right in front of me. It's boxed up in the garage. It's the Enterprise is a Galaxy class starship.
Okay, the Next Generation Enterprise, right?
Yeah.
Because is it the original series that's the Constitution class?
I believe so. Yes.
Okay. Glad we got that cleared up. All right. So like this ship, it's smaller than like the USS Enterprise is. It doesn't seem as it's kind of funny because one of the things I really liked about this show was like its opening credit sequence, because in the Kurtzman era we got all these like very artistic, arty, farty opening sequences, but this one felt like a callback to like Voyager and like
this was a direct callback to Next Generation. They even use the same font.
Yep.
Yeah,
and everything. I really like that part of this.
Yeah, and the opening credit sequence, like we just see the ship going around, like getting into adventures and stuff, kind of like how Voyager and TNG.
Yeah,
it's like oh look, the Romulans are fighting the Borg. Nope, they turn around and they're out. It's like forget it.
I did laugh
at that.
Like they're not a fighting class ship. They're not an explorer ship. They just kind of come in and clean up afterwards. Which I thought was
like people didn't like that. Some people didn't like that.
A lot of people don't like a lot of things. I'm not. I try not to worry about it because I respect the other people who are like really just not liking this show. But I'm like, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the opening credits specifically. There was that moment where it reminded me of Voyager, where they're flying through that little asteroid field and they nick the dorsal engine with the asteroid, and it like kind of blinks and goes out, and then they start. I don't know, man. It was like lighthearted enough, yet it had enough callbacks to like the TNG era that I was like, all right, I get what they're doing, and I appreciated that part. The opening credits was a ton of fun.
I agree. All right, let's get into some of the characters now. So it appears that the main character of this show is Beckett Mariner, and she's the maverick, the loose cannon. She's the one who's kind of going at 100 miles a minute. She's like Anna, that Star Wars girl, after she had too much caffeine. And her and Boimler are the first two characters that we're introduced to in the series. What did you guys think of Ensign Mariner?
I think she was a little bit too over the top. I think if they tone her down just a little bit, I think it would be a really fun character because she's like rogue, anti-establishment. She really doesn't like being in Starfleet. But as we find out later on, which I want to ask you guys something in a second, but as we find out later on, she's the daughter of an admiral and the captain of the ship that she's on. So she has this family expectation to be in Starfleet, but I think she just wants to go against the grain. So I appreciated that idea. And what did you guys think of the twist little surprise ending where she ended up being the daughter of these two high-ranking officials?
I called it 2 minutes into the show.
Did you really?
Pretty predictable.
Yeah, she's obviously the captain's daughter. Otherwise, the captain wouldn't be asking Boimler to keep an eye on her.
I don't know. I just didn't pick up on that.
I kind of think she's a cartoon version of the Discovery Girl. What's her? I don't remember her name.
Michael Burnham.
Burnham, yeah, but that's okay. Whatever.
I don't know. I liked Mariner a lot more than I ever liked Burnham.
Oh, I like Mariner way better than I like Burnham for sure. This character seems way more fun.
Yeah, she almost seems like a Bart Simpson type character where she's like an underachiever and proud of it type thing. And if you think about it, in this time period, there's not much to do other than Starfleet. There aren't a whole lot of career paths that are available because you have this resource economy where replicators make everything possible. So people are just, pursuing their passions and, the stuff that interests them. And so for someone like Mariner, who's kind of not really interested in anything, she's just kind of in Starfleet because that's what you do when you graduate high school or something like that.
Yeah.
So I find that kind of an interesting concept. But the first time we meet Mariner, she's drunk off of Romulan whiskey, not Romulan ale, Romulan whiskey.
People got so upset about that. It was weird.
Apparently, Romulan whiskey's blue. And
of course it is.
That's a bad thing. Is Romulan ale green? I want to say it's green.
I think it's blue.
I think it's blue also.
Okay.
All Romulan drinks are blue. Come on.
It's kind of like the blue milk from Star Wars.
That's right.
Is it the Klingon ale that's green? I know that there's something that's green that they drink.
Well, Klingon blood wine is red.
That's red.
But is there? I don't think there is such a thing as Klingon ale.
No, okay.
They drink blood wine.
Blood wine.
Yeah. Blood wine.
So the first time we meet Mariner, she's drunk and she's got one of those Klingon sword things, and she's yeah, she's just going off,
swinging it around.
Yeah, she's swinging it around because she's completely off her ass drunk off of Romulan whiskey, and she ends up just cutting into Boimler. That's our introduction to the two characters.
Yeah, and they stare at each other for a second. That moment where they're like, ah!
It gets away just as the blood spurts happen. It's oh, okay, well, we know that this isn't for kids.
Thank goodness for Star Trek medicine. They just point that tricorder at it and fix it right up.
Beam him to the next day.
Salty's going to be so upset.
His internet is not the best.
You're calling Cox right after the show.
I am. I'm seriously going to do that. You're absolutely right.
Slide to show Salty is what we call him.
This is why we do podcasts.
All right, so the next character up is Ensign Boimler, and he's kind of like the other co-main character next to Mariner, played by Jack Quaid. He's kind of like the by-the-book, straight man in the series, and he's actually the first character that we're introduced to in the show. Mariner comes in kind of almost immediately after we see him for the first time. And the show's really about the dynamic between Boimler and Mariner. And it's this great kind of odd couple pairing where, you have Murtaugh and Riggs or Lemon and Mathau, where basically they play off of each other because they're polar opposites. Mariner is the manic, let's do this. Let's not have a plan. Let's just jump into it. And Boimler's we got to do it by the book. We got to, have a plan. We got to think things through. And so, I found that their interactions throughout the show very entertaining. What did you guys think of Boimler?
I agree. I did find their dynamic fun and fun to watch. However, I'm a little I'm a little hesitant to jump on board quite yet because of like, I don't know. I feel like this has to be said, but of course, the white dude, the white male, is like the buffoon in this scenario. So I'm hoping that in the future, his personality traits will come in more handy, and he won't always be the butt of the joke. But maybe at some point in time, he'll be the one who figures things out and saves everybody else. Like I don't always want this guy to be the hypersensitive, dumb, I can't do anything kind of personality. I want him to grow as the show goes on. So I'm going to reserve judgment. Go ahead.
He reminds me of these young people just out of school who are super ambitious and they want to get promoted. I've dealt with these kind of people in the real world, and it's just like, they gotta get some seasoning behind them, and they gotta learn how things work. And he's a little over the top for me, but I like the dynamic. They're both super extremes in their both of their personalities. So I think part of the story of the show is them going to be kind of balancing and mellowing each other out as the show goes along. So it'll be an interesting dynamic to see how that goes.
See, I have heard the criticism from some of the people who didn't enjoy this show about how he is like a buffoonish character, but I actually didn't get that from my watch of it. Like, he seems very competent, and a lot of the quote unquote buffoonery is just from the fact that he doesn't have a lot of like in-field experience. Because Mariner, she's very kind of street smart, and I look at Boimler as very book smart. Like, he gets excited about the warp core and science, but like he's there. He's actually like a much better crew member than Mariner, because he's like fixing stuff, and she's just kind of like running around doing contraband and things. So like, I feel like his expertise is actually different than Mariner's, and we didn't get to see a lot of that in this episode because like he is going to be the straight man who kind of like he's the butt of the jokes because that's his role. But overall, I feel like he's not really a buffoon. He's just kind of like inexperienced to a certain extent. And I think in future episodes, we're going to see parts where Boimler kind of schools Mariner in certain respects. Because he did surprise her at the end of this episode by not turning her in to her mother. Yeah,
and I agree with you 100%. I think that it needs to be shown. I hope that it gets shown later on in the season where his book smart comes in handy and he kind of like takes charge once in a while. So as long as he's just not constantly the butt of the joke, I'm on board.
And we have our special guest who's finally arrived, Mr.
You're
Tom
way
Fox.
too nice to this show.
Well, right now we're just going through the characters, and then after we get through the characters, we're going to start talking about the episode proper. But Tom, thank you for joining us. Glad that you could make it.
Sorry I'm late.
That's okay. So we were just talking about Ensigns Mariner and Boimler. What are your thoughts on these two characters?
Twat Waffle and Mikey Spock 2.0?
Yep.
There you go.
All right.
There you go.
All right. So our next character here is what's her name? Divana.
The only Orion who has green hair.
Yeah. Divana Tendi. And she is the new arrival on the Cerritos. She is a medical/science officer, and she is kind of interning in the med bay. So she's the doctor. She's the McCoy character, and she is an Orion Girl. Salty, what did you think of Tendi?
I don't really have any kind of like feeling towards her either way. I'm waiting to see what she's going to do. I didn't hate her. She was very wide-eyed and just absolutely in awe that she was even on a starship to begin with. So I thought that was kind of cool. I kind of, you can connect with that a little bit, but does, as far as like looks goes, she does fit the bill for the current generation. I'll just leave it at that. But I don't know. I haven't really seen enough out of her to really make a judgment call on it yet. I'm
at least her hair is green and not blue. So,
it fits. Yeah, she hasn't dyed her hair. It's the same color as her actual natural hair, so that's good.
It matches the curtains. Is that what you're saying? Vader, what did you think of Tendi?
I don't think I've seen enough of her to really form an opinion yet. She's okay. like I said, I need to see more of this show before I really form an opinion of a lot of these characters that aren't like Boimler or
Mariner.
Mariner. Yeah, so we'll see how it goes with her.
All right.
I do think she's more of the cat lady is more of the McCoy character to me.
Yeah,
for the,
sure.
the cranky one.
I meant from the lower decks.
Yeah, I suppose so.
side
But no,
of things.
I don't really have much of an opinion on this character yet. I want to see what they do with her going forward.
So, Cancel Tom, what are your thoughts on the Orion Girl?
She was probably the least annoying of the bunch, I guess.
I guess so. She reminded me a lot of Tilly.
Short
She
and
had
to the point.
I was going to say they're all basically Tilly.
She had a very Tilly kind of aura to her, I guess. She's just very excited. Like, even though terrible things are happening around her, she's like, I finally get to hold a heart in my hand.
Oh yeah, that was a funny moment. I did chuckle at
It
that.
hurts every time you pump it. It hurts.
Except for that's totally something that wouldn't happen probably in the Star Trek universe, but
But
Probably
yeah,
All right. So next up is Sam Rutherford, who I think he's Asian. And he's
Oh,
also the only cyborg.
I thought he was Latino.
Is he Latino? I think
I
he's
thought
Asian.
I thought he was black.
I thought he was black.
Oh,
Wow, we are all over the place.
Do they
He's mixed.
know?
He's mixed race.
yeah, he's mixed.
They just focused on he's a newly cyborged cyborg, and his cyborg implants are kind of
Vulcan.
he's not quite used to them yet.
Yeah.
But he's the engineering guy. So Mariner and Boimler are both command class, and Devana is science / medical, and this is our Geordie, basically our engineering guy. So Salty, what did you think of Mr. Rutherford here?
I like this dude. I thought he had really good comedic timing with some of the scenarios that he was in, getting used to his cyborg side, but he was also like really competent. Like when the zombies started taking over the ship, he was taking charge. He was using his phaser. I enjoyed his character because he was able to do what he needed to do. He was never like on his heels. I like that. I don't know. He was like an action kind of guy and very competent, knew what he was doing. So I appreciated that. I liked him.
Vader, what did you think?
He was okay. I need to know more about this guy, but I did kind of like how he was. I liked his comedic elements. How his stuff doesn't work or it's integrating weird with his new setup, and there's a character there that they can develop and have some fun stuff with for sure. So
I liked how there was like some type of Vulcan programming that would just suppress his emotions.
yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, that's highly illogical. And he's like, oh, sorry. Tom, what did you think of Sam Rutherford?
His joke was probably the most cliche of the whole bunch. Like, I really thought, I mean, and that's saying a lot considering almost everything fell flat in the show for me, obviously. His character was the most annoying. I hated the joke because it's not that funny. It doesn't organically play in the scenes very well, and it's like it's kind of we already kind of got the same kind of jokes in the past a million times over with Data and stuff like that. So it's kind of, I don't know, kind of played out and stale. But that's just me.
Well, his storyline in this episode was he was basically on a date the whole time that the zombie outbreak is going on. And so while he's like fighting the zombie outbreak with his date, they're kind of like, oh, what type of music do you listen to?
I'll get into that later when we get, I have issues with that entire bit.
I found that little subplot kind of cute, actually. All right,
And you're a writer?
So we're, yes.
Here we go.
So now we're off to Carol Freeman, who's the captain of the Cerritos and also the mother.
Mikey Spock 3.0, basically.
Pretty much. And she is the mother of Ensign Mariner, as revealed at the end of the episode.
As surprised to no one, actually.
Yeah.
Well, I was surprised.
So what did you guys think of Captain Freeman?
I don't know, just the generic, Starfleet captain. I mean, my favorite captain in Starfleet is Janeway. Voyager is my favorite Star Trek show, so this isn't a really big change for me. I liked her. I thought she was pretty cool. I liked the whole bridge crew. I think they were. I liked their like hyper masculine, like we're badasses and we know it. Like I thought that was pretty funny and it made sense for me.
Didn't they call them like the bro crew or something?
Yeah, yeah. It was just a goofy, dumb, like haha moment for me that all these the bridge crew was like, just as everything in this show is, it's like to the extreme. So when you have the lower decks guys, they're to the extreme of like the newbies, and then when you get to the bridge crew, they're to the extreme of like these really seasoned people who are like really know what they're doing. And I don't know. I liked her. I thought she was fine. I don't really have any super big gripes with her. Again, it's just the first episode, so we'll see what happens going forward.
Vader, what did you think of the new
I think you're going to have to ask me these questions of what I think of their characters at the end of the season, because I don't have enough yet. I mean, they're all the characters that are fine, but they're stereotypes of their characters and taken to a cartoon extreme, which is fine. But to me to give an opinion on these characters right now is hard, because I just don't know enough about these people yet. You know, they're very diverse and everything, and that's fine. I don't care about that. It's Star Trek. Star Trek has always been diverse and in broken grounds and stuff that way. But to form an opinion on a character that I've seen for literally 3 minutes of a 26-minute, 24-minute, or whatever show, it's hard. But she's fine. I don't have an issue with her yet.
There was black female captain in a Star Trek show.
That's true.
For like the main ship.
Yeah, that's true. There was one moment that actually stood out to me that actually made me chuckle, was when she was on the conference call with the admiral, who ended up being her husband, and she was like, "Get this girl off my ship," and the husband's like, "What? Oh, sorry, I can't hear you." Click.
I did like their little exchange. It was very like oh, he's dealing with his wife.
Yeah.
Tom, how much did you hate this character?
Not as much as the rest, but she was just predictable.
Yeah.
I do think that fight and some of the things she said to her daughter and things were a little stereotypical, especially considering I don't expect anybody would still like use that kind of pentameter in the future still, because they go from speaking all like Star Trek-y to like 1990s speak, and I'm like, I feel like I'm watching Martin all of a sudden or something. It just, I don't know. I know I'm the contrarian on this board, so.
No, that's fine, man. We knew, because we talked about this before. We were like, we're going to go on here, and most of the people in our circle hate this show. So we're going to be like the counter opinion going out here. So I'm glad to have you on, because I don't want it to be just a big circle jerk of like, oh, I thought it was kind of funny. So speak your mind, man. Speak your mind.
Well, that's what's sad, is it could have been funny, and we'll get into that when we get into the story and the overall bit.
All right, so
I laughed at one part.
Now we're getting into the command crew, and the second officer is named Jack Ransom, and he's voiced by Jerry O'Connell, who is of course what's her name's husband, number two or number one, Rebecca Romaine. That's her husband.
Oh, okay.
What did you guys think of Jack Ransom?
He's a hyper realized Riker.
Yeah.
So cartoon version of Riker. I'm down for it. He's
hey, you got a bug bite there. No, it's good. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Like walking off.
Yeah.
He'll be all right. He just keeps scratching it. I don't know. I didn't have a problem with him, but again, like Vader said, I think this is going to be the true case about all these characters. I want to see more going forward. So as of right now, just that's how I see him, is just that hyper cartoonized version of William Riker.
Yeah, he's definitely the most bro-ish of the characters. Tom, what did you think of Jack Ransom?
Played by Jerry. Oh, okay. I couldn't really tell, but yeah, very stereotypical kind of Futurama type character. And forgive me if I'm wrong, but wouldn't the transporter had filtered out that anomaly, or wouldn't they have detected it through the transporting if it didn't? That's just me.
Well, maybe it couldn't recognize whatever it was.
Yeah, well, otherwise then shoujo couldn't happen. That's why.
Right. Oh no, we've had like microbes get through on transport.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, there's a few times I'd like to nitpick to this, but it's like, yeah, well, I'll let it pass. Trust me, I can be worse.
I'm trying to hold a cartoon to a little bit different level than I would an actual real Star Trek show.
That's the problem. Is this is a real Star Trek
I
show?
know.
That's why a lot of people are having issues. Is because it's
I'm
not.
trying to cut a little bit of slack when it comes to like the hardcore Star Trek nerd shit. So it's just.
I don't think you should, because a lot of the jokes are revolved around that.
That's true. You're not wrong. I don't disagree with you. So that's why there's a conflict going on in this noggin about how hardcore I should be with this stuff. So.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be different if this was a show that was not Star Trek, making fun of stuff like Star Trek. But when Orville is closer to Star Trek than this is, we got a problem, Houston.
100%.
You know, that's where I'm at.
I would probably say, don't ask me to explain it, but this feels more Star Trek to me than Disco or Picard.
Yeah, I can agree with that, but that's not saying much either. That's the problem.
It really is not.
It's a really low bar.
At least the Klingons look like Klingons and not Klingorks, so I'll give up points for that.
So this is my favorite character in the show. His name is Lieutenant Shax, and he's the head of Cerritos Security. And he's just this huge Bajoran guy who just like kicks ass. And his solution to everything is just to blow it up.
Yeah.
Where it's like at some point the captain asked him, was like what do you recommend, Lieutenant Shax? And he's just like, I recommend we blow up the warp core. And she's like, that's a terrible idea. But, like, we didn't get a lot of him in this episode, but from like what I saw of him here and in the coming preview, he just seems like he just likes to like fight and like shoot stuff. And I don't know, I like characters like that. So he seemed kind of like a fun character to me. Alex, what did you think of him?
I agree with you. There's this like battle in my head because I've been watching some TNG recently, and this is who I always wanted Worf to be. Worf seems like he's going to be like this guy, but in the Next Generation, Worf gets his ass kicked all the time, and it's almost irritating to a point. So I'm like, when I see this guy and he's just like kicking ass and taking names, I'm like, all right, I can dig it. I like this guy, and is like very straightforward. Like you said, that moment was like, it did make me chuckle. He's like, I suggest we blow up the warp core. Like, what? It was a good moment. So as of right now, for the first episode, I enjoy his character. I think every Star Trek show needs one of these characters, so I'm on board.
Vader?
I don't know. I don't. The jury's still out on this guy. It's like all of them. I appreciate the extreme character flaws that this guy has, but he's there strictly for gags right now, and that's okay. I just don't have a huge opinion on him one way or another yet. So.
Tom, tell me that you at least like this guy.
I will tell you this much and make you happy. Between Twat Waffle and this guy, these two characters, or between those two characters, are the most Star Trek of the bunch. Like, I can see them in another Star Trek show. That's all I can really. I mean, this guy is at least probably the most enjoyable of the bunch, but again, he's kind of wasted here. Unfortunately, that's the thing. Is he'd be hilarious somewhere else, but he's surrounded by so much chaos that he's already kind of buried in the rest. So he almost comes off subdued compared to everybody else in this equation. That's what's kind of messed up. But yeah, sorry about that.
All right. So next up, we have Dr. Tiana, who is, I guess, a cat person. I've never
cat lady.
Yeah. Is this
a Cashin? So she's a direct throwback to the cat person in the other Star Trek cartoon.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
They've never had this race has been canon since the early 70s.
They were in one of the movies too.
Yeah, they just never really had. They've never really had the ability to really
do them live action.
Do them well in live action. I don't think so.
That makes sense.
But now that we have the Cats movie technology, maybe we can see one.
No. Please don't. Don't give Kurtzman any ideas, man.
This character would have worked better as a man, because like the voice of this character, it's a female voice, and it just seems kind of like out of place. I
agree 100%.
Yeah. Alex, what did you think of Dr. Tiana?
This is where the salt comes in. This is just, I mean, she was okay for her role, but it's just a second-rate McCoy. That's all. It's 100% just a ripoff of McCoy, which not exactly the most original idea. having the Doctor be the grumpy, like, no nonsense type person. So just nah. I didn't hate her. I'll see what happens to her later on in the season, but as of right now, it's just another it's a ripoff.
That's kind of funny because I think she's my favorite of the senior crew that I like.
McCoy is awesome. Like, I love McCoy, and I love that idea that the Doctor is going to be, that personality trait. So it makes sense. I mean, they did the same thing in Discovery too. They had that like random engineer lady come in, and she was just another McCoy. So it's not new for Trek, but
it's becoming a trope.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you think at some point we're going to see the emergency medical hologram show up and it'll be Robert Picardo?
Oh, that'd be great.
I'd be all right with
that.
I'd be down for that.
I think that'd be cool. Tom,
I have a feeling.
What did you think of her?
Oh, I have a feeling you're right about that. And not only that, I agree with everything you guys are saying for the most part, except for basically the last bit. Yeah. What, did you need something, Matt?
No, I said I'll be right back.
Oh, okay. Yeah, except for the last part where, like, again, you have another character who's too much like McCoy. And you had, like, Dr. Phlox. He was kind of like your overly ambitious kind of doctor who really was, like, into it and, like, kind of like, just overly, how do I put it? Too into his work. Like, he loved it too much. You need something a little different in the middle. Like, if they had like a Doc Brown type character in this role, I think it would have been better. Somebody who was just a little off kilter, still a doctor, not the gruff, McCoy type, because again, it's getting to be a trope now. But you need just somebody who's eccentric as a doctor, and I think it would have played a little bit better with the character. And I agree with you too, Matt, 100%. Like, the voice does not match the character at all.
Yeah.
I don't know what they were thinking with that. I mean, I'm not saying it has to be a guy per se, but that voice just didn't match.
Yeah, you almost need like a woman smoker voice or something like that.
And it almost was like they were trying to do that, but it was somebody trying to do that kind of voice. It just didn't come off. It just come off disingenuous, I guess is the best way I could put it.
Yeah. Well, this was probably my least favorite character of the group. So I don't know. I'll try to withhold judgment until I see more of her. And then, of course, finally we have Andy Phillips, who's like the
Gabe Ryan.
Yeah, he's like Ransom. He's like Ransom's like bro dude, I guess.
Oh, he's a bro dude. That's right.
Yeah. And apparently, I think this was the one that Rutherford's date was referring to about how like talking to women is the final frontier for him or something like that. But I'm digging the mustache.
Yeah.
That's why I think I was making the joke about him being gay, because I think he is, but yeah.
Well, not that there's anything wrong with that.
No, but like with the final frontier thing and the mustache thing, yeah.
Alex, what did you think of Andy Phillips?
Tell you the truth, man, I didn't even remember he was in this show. I don't remember a moment where he did anything memorable for me, so I have no judgment for him. Forgettable.
Vader?
Is he a member of the main cast or what? I don't know.
Yeah, he's the bridge crew.
Yeah, I don't have an opinion on this guy. Not yet.
Yeah, he was kind of like the main guy's sidekick, right?
He does have a good mustache, though. So.
Good little cookie duster there. Yeah. All right, so
looks like a teacher.
Now that we've gone through the characters, let's talk about our thoughts on this episode. Alex, what did you think of the episode overall?
I thought it was interesting to explore the second contact aspect a little bit. The idea that the main girl, what was her name again? Mariner would go off and like give supplies to some farmers seemed a little weird to me. Like, oh, Starfleet's not working fast enough for me. I'm going to do it myself. I'm like, okay, some people might fall through the cracks, but I just didn't find that very convincing. The little idea that Jack Quaid's character is going to be like spying on him because the girl's mother wants to know what she's doing, behind her back and stuff. I thought that was interesting, and it was believable to me that he would be the one to do that because he wants to be promoted. I really, really enjoyed the space zombie plot for the main bridge crew. I thought that was hilarious, and I also thought that like if you were to do it a little bit more of a straight Star Trek TV show, like that would be a fun episode to watch on like Voyager or something, which it may have actually happened at one point. I can't really remember, but so that felt real to me. That felt like it was pretty close to a Star Trek storyline. the characters worked as far as that goes. There was a decent amount of moments where I chuckled. I think Vader's moment, you said you love that moment where the spider was just like suckling on him.
That scene me had me on the floor the first time.
I really cracked up at that scene.
Yeah,
it's like he's suckling him, and it's just the it was just like
and the pig farmer's like, don't shoot him, you'll spoil the milk.
Don't scare him or whatever. Yeah, But no, that scene could have been the most hilarious in the bunch, but the timing was off for me, and it was a complete rip off of a scene that was already in Rick and Morty. So there was like where Morty was like stuck, like some snake was like gumming on him or something like that, and he's like, "Oh, just stand still. She's not going to hurt you, Morty. She's just gumming on you or whatever for moisture or whatever it was." Yeah,
I finally talked Salty into binging through Rick and Morty, so we'll have to talk about that show someday whenever Kadish gets around to watching it. So
yeah, I do have a feeling like this show is going to steal a lot of those ideas because that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to mimic.
Well, McMahon, the showrunner for this show, is from Rick and Morty.
He only worked on a second season though.
Yeah, but still,
and they're toting him like he's like he was the creator of Rick and Morty.
Right? No, he's far from it.
They also have people from Venture Brothers working on the show too.
I was gonna say, I think he worked on more things in the past than he did on Rick and Morty, but yeah.
I mean, if they can come up with some more original ideas and some more original gags that don't directly take elements from other cartoons of the same style, that'll be better. But again, we're gonna have to wait to see what the whole season has to do. So that might happen, that might not. But for this opening season, I thought the introduction to the characters was fine. I thought the plot line was believable as far as like a Star Trek style thing going on. Yeah, there's some parasite making its way through the crew, and everybody has to work together to try to figure out how to stop it. And it was very quick, very fast paced. It wasn't like as far as like Trek goes, Star Trek shows usually are a little bit slower than that. But as far as a cartoon goes, I understand why guys like Tom are like holding it to the same standard as Star Trek, but I have a hard time doing that because I see it as like this dumb kind of comedy cartoon. So I cut it a little bit of slack, I guess. I don't know.
I feel like it's very similar to how Teen Titans Go is compared to like a DC Universe movie. Teen Titans Go, it's same characters, same universe, but it's a completely different audience that is being made for. And so like even though they make references to the greater DC universe in that cartoon, it's still a cartoon. And so like they take advantage of that medium in telling the stories that they tell. And I feel this is very similar, where Star Trek Lower Decks, it's not meant to be held to the same standard as like a regular Trek live action show.
Perhaps, but then again, it should be because they are toting it as such. Like they have several times over made sure everybody realizes that this isn't canon. We're going to get cameos now. They've finally, even though that was what I asked them last year at STLV and they said they didn't know yet, but they'd like to. Tawny, I can't remember her last name now. The chick who does the main lady's voice. Newsom, yeah. She had said that they do have some cameos, but she couldn't say who, obviously. So that's why I think maybe the Doctor's going to be one of them. Probably anybody who's easily can be plugged. Anybody who probably showed up for Picard and wasn't on Picard is probably in there, I bet. Because if you've seen the pictures, like, I have a feeling. But my main issue with the humor is again, like I agree with you guys. This is probably the best we've gotten out of Kurtzman Trek. Don't get me wrong, but I hold it to this standard because if it wasn't for things like Orville and Galaxy Quest being out there and they're being 10 times better and doing exactly what this should have been, that's the problem. You have different kinds of comedy. You have, obviously you have slapstick, you have character humor, or you have a satire or a parody. Okay. This should have been a satire, but they made it a parody. And what I mean is the type of humor and the way the characters act is just like Airplane or Naked Gun or one of those kind of movies where everybody plays it straight, but they're dumb as fuck. Like they really don't get the joke. That's the whole point of the joke. Like the, Don't Call Me Shirley kind of thing. That's what the kind of thing they're trying to do here. And that does not work in Trek when you already have an established humor set in Trek. Like a great example is in Generations when Data gets his emotion chip. They played that to the hilt. That's the kind of stuff you need in Trek. That's the kind of humor you need. And when you've got characters that act like they shouldn't even be on a starship because they're that stupid, it makes it very unbelievable to be in that same universe. And and then when you got like, I think Heels versus Babyface said it best in his opening bit when he's like, this is the show, and he had his two people just bickering at each other. You can't understand what half the characters are saying because they're constantly talking over each other, and it's slapdash, wham bam, thank you ma'am, and it's like, that's not funny. Just because it's loud and obnoxious does not make it funny. A joke has to be funny. I get, you know, the cyborg thing. Okay, he's going to act up and he's going to act like a robot every 2 seconds. Ha ha ha. I haven't not seen that before. You know, there's things in the Trek universe you can have fun with that are there already. Like that great example was the one character we all seem to like for the most part, and that was the gruffer kind of character, because he does fit in the Trek universe. The main character does kind of fit in the Trek universe. You can see an Ensign who's just overly obsessed with all the rules and just excited about every little thing. Like that was kind of one of the main bits that did give me a minor chuckle, is when they're sitting in the thing, and she's like, you can go anywhere you want. What is it called? I just drew a blank on it. The holodeck. And she's like, you can go anywhere you want. I want to go to the core room, and he goes to the core room. Like that kind of character you can see being in Star Trek. The same thing with that other kind of, militant kind of guy. But the rest of them, they don't fit. I mean, the main captain lady, she's probably okay. But once she starts talking about her daughter and to her husband, she slips into that stereotypical black mother mode. And it really kind of took me out of it at that point. It's like, nobody is kind of like who they seem they are, and everybody's dumber than they should be. Yeah. And it's one thing to be, that's my main issue.
I'm a completely different person at work than I am here.
I get that. And that's not my issue, though. It's just that if you're going to play it straight, Naked Gun kind of style comedy, that does not work in the Star Trek universe. And that's what everybody thought we were going to get with the Orville when we didn't. And
here are 2 points I want to make real quick. Maybe not so quick because it's me. But
I'm glad you're finally figuring that out.
Can I just say one thing before I forget, because it was in direct response to something that Tom said. There was one moment, Tom, I do agree with you, that completely took me out of it, was when I keep forgetting her name, the main character, she's like, I don't know. I'm not a scientist. I don't know what's going, like, wait a minute. What? Like, you're in Starfleet. Of course you're a scientist. Like, everybody in Starfleet's a scientist of some kind or another. Like, that was one line, and maybe there's more that I just didn't pick up on, but that one in particular, like, really took me out of the moment. Like, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. So
because the setup of the show is kind of clever. The second contact unit, the guys who aren't the main guys on the deck, that's clever, but they just kind of waste it, in my opinion.
So,
fair enough. Go ahead, Kanish.
So, when I first sat down to watch this, hold on, just responding to chat real quick. When I first sat down to watch this, I was fully expecting to hate it. Like, I came in there feeling, like, okay, I have Discovery and Picard to go off of, and Picard was just an abomination on every level. And so, like, when the show started, I was like, this is going to be stupid. I'm going to have to suffer through this. I'm going to hate it. And you know what? I didn't hate it. I actually had a lot of fun. And I think that one of the reasons why I liked this show was that after getting like 3 seasons of violent, cynical, awful, inconsistent Star Trek, we have something that's like lighthearted, fun, somewhat optimistic. It captured that spirit of classic Trek in its tone that I think is missing from like the live action stuff that we've gotten in the past like 2 years. And so that really kind of, warmed me up to it. Now, the second point I wanted to make is that, this is a comedy and all humor is subjective, So obviously there are some people where the humor for this isn't going to land, and there are some people who are going to think this is the funniest thing ever. And there are 8 types of humor out there. And as a writer, when I'm looking at a comedy and I'm breaking it down, I'm trying to figure out, okay, how are they utilizing these 8 different types of humor? And Tom kind of touched on some of them. There's satire, there's wordplay, there's situational humor, there's physical humor, which is like slapstick. There's absurdist humor, which is like the airplane movies, self-depreciating humor, risque humor, ironic humor, and parody.
Right, and you've got too many mixing. Yeah, sorry.
Well, it's not so much that they're mixing. It's just that, these are
the wrong formula then.
No, I wouldn't even call it formula. Like these are the types of humor that people can utilize to make other people laugh. And, when you plug them into a show, uh, shows tend to kind of be geared towards just one type of these types of humors, and sometimes they mix in a few others. And from once you understand the type of humor that you're dealing with, then like people can be like, okay, I'm into this type of humor, or I'm not into this type of humor. And Alex and I have conversations all the time where he doesn't get half the stuff that me and Vader think are funny.
Yeah.
So like it's just it comes down to comedies are a thing about individual taste.
That's fair, but like you're pointing out, like you can't have things that are too similar to each other and expect them to make sense within the world. Like you can't sit there and have a movie like Police Academy then start throwing in like stuff from Naked Gun and have it work. They're two different kinds of comedy. Same thing with like Caddyshack and Airplane. They're two different kind of comedies.
It's also about the audience. Like this type of show geared towards an audience that is
I'm just saying, I'm not saying you're wrong, but I think there's an argument to be made here that the type of humor they picked was wrong for Star Trek. That's all I was saying.
I don't think it was, though, because I laughed a lot throughout this thing, and I rewatched it again just to make sure, like was I high on something when and there were lots of scenes where the wordplay humor, where like if you listen to the dialogue and you listen to what the characters are saying, it's actually there's a lot of clever stuff in there that I actually laughed at. Like that whole scene where the spider cow had just like broken out of the thing and they're hiding, and Mariner is telling Boymer about all the different Star Trek type scenarios that she's been in. Where like, I was in Romulan prison, I had to fight a so-and-so for my shoe, like she was just going through all these scenarios that are like very typical Star Trek scenarios. And I thought that was like really funny, and like there was just a lot of stuff in here where like the more I paid attention to it, the more I got what the writers were going for. I was like, you know what, that's clever, that's interesting, that's funny. So I just I know it's an unpopular opinion amongst a lot of the people who were disappointed by Picard and Discovery, but like I really enjoyed this episode. I'm looking forward to seeing more of it.
I think the trailer that they showed at the end looked more interesting than this episode did, so I'm looking forward to seeing the second episode as well. But there's another thing that I wanted to talk about a little bit, is that the idea that Star Trek can be something other than the classic TV shows that we all grew up with and love. I'm on board for the change. I think it's okay. Like I know some people like get upset that it's like a parody of itself. Like, oh, Star Trek is making parodies of its own show. I'm like, I'm all right with that. I'd rather them do it than, I like Orville and what was the other? Galaxy Quest is fantastic, and those are I don't know if I'd call them parodies, but they're just kind of like based off of the Star Trek realm of entertainment, and I enjoyed those too. But when Star Trek does like a self-deprecating comedy skit, I'm ready for the change. I'm ready for some new entertainment to come out of Star Trek, because the live action TV shows the last couple of years have not been that great, and the serialized like old school TV shows, I don't think they would last very long in this current entertainment era right now. They're a little.
I disagree with that.
You disagree with that?
Well, I appreciate where he's coming from, but I disagree. This is the complete wrong direction for Trek to go. This is even worse in some ways.
It's not like this is. Sorry, it's not like this is the only thing we're going to get. We're going to get other TV shows. Hopefully, I doubt it, but hopefully Discovery season 3 is better.
Much like the short Treks, I feel like this is like a side piece to the main Trek storyline.
But once they start bringing in characters we know, it won't be anymore, Matt. That's the problem.
But I mean, like this isn't going to be a show that heavily impacts canon. It's basically just like a fun side story to kind of tide us over until like the live action stuff returns.
Quit threatening me.
I never mix animated shows with live action shows, regardless of whether they say it's canon or not. It's just it's too different to be able to mix the two genres.
I mean, that's fair to a point, and I could ignore it until they start bringing in characters that already exist. Then we've got problems, and that was my main problem with Picard, and that's what I saw with the audience between Star Trek Discovery and Picard was we had a lot of people who just didn't give a shit about Discovery because they didn't have to. But when Picard happened, and that's a character that everybody cares about, you had a lot of normies who had not watched Star Trek since clear back to either TNG or one of the other following shows. And when they jumped into this, they were just like, what the ever loving hell is this? And we were like, we told you, we tried warning you for the last 5 years, but nobody listened. You know, it's like,
you know what though, like that show feels like it was made by fans of Star Trek.
Well, the guy, and that's what hurts me the most.
Picard, which felt like they could give a shit about Star Trek.
Well, and let me be clear. I went into this kind of the opposite of you, Matt, until I saw that first trailer, to be honest, because I went to the panel at Star Trek Las Vegas. I was one of the 5 people in the room because that panel, no, I'm not kidding. And it's funny, but it's true. Like, it was that bad because you've seen all those panels, Matt. Even the tech panels had fucking people wrapped up around to ask questions. There was literally less than a dozen people in the room, and it was Rob, myself, one of the Trek Yards guys, and some lady lined up to ask a question, and the lady left. And I mean, these guys, they obviously seem like they cared about Trek. So like leaving that panel, and for the last year, I've been kind of toting this, you know, I think this Lower Decks might actually have something to it. It might be the first thing we're getting out of Kurtzman Trek that might feel like Trek. And then I saw that damn trailer, and I saw the scenes, and then I saw the show. And then like you guys, there was not once that I laughed, because even the few times that there was something funny, the way the timing was set up or the way it was written, again, that's subjective. I get that to a point, but you can objectively argue still, I feel like that this kind of humor has no place, whether it's a cartoon or not, in Star Trek, because it's taken us even farther away from the mothership than we already were getting with Discovery and Picard. And in that, I mean, is like you're getting to this point where now you're just getting nonsense in the universe, and you've got people running around acting like complete morons. And if you're to try and translate them into live action, it would just be a mess. And then you're going to bring in characters that already exist, and you're going to parodize characters. That is going to rub so many people the wrong way.
Well, but this isn't going to be a live action thing, so I don't think we have to worry about that.
I know, but you just brought it up yourself. What do they bring in Robert Picardo and shit like that? And then people have a problem with that. It's going to be a big deal.
It'd be the same thing like bringing the Robert Picardo character into the Family Guy episode. You know, like,
it's different though. See, Family Guy is a parody though, making fun of something. That's not Star Trek. You do that in Star Trek. That is just basically, you might as well take your pants down and take a shit right all over the fan, because that's the way they feel.
I think that's a bit extreme.
It's a bit hyperbolic, but that's the way and don't get me wrong, that's the way Star Trek fans feel, and that's the way I felt watching Picard. I mean, I'm not kidding, and I don't feel it's hyperbolic when I say the last.
It's a fair comparison to compare this to Picard, because I mean, it's a completely different, like, not only medium because it's cartoon, it's a completely different style of show geared towards a completely different audience. So I mean, like, you can't really.
What's that audience though? It's Star Trek. Star Trek is Star Trek though, man. I get where you're coming from. You're trying to make excuses for it.
This is
Star Trek.
This is not my father's Star Trek. Like, it's a completely different. They're trying to appeal to a new audience, which I understand.
And that's been the problem for the last 10 years now.
Yeah, that can, especially for the live action shows. I agree with you. That's because they're trying to use these characters that we've grown up with and apply them to a new audience. It doesn't work.
What is the audience? I mean, the
Star
audience,
Trek fans.
Well, yeah, that's me, right? I mean, that's us. That's the 4 of us. There's an entire generation that didn't have any Star Trek between
2005.
Yeah, I mean, there's like 15 years, right, between Star Trek shows that were new coming out. So those people are done. They don't care about Star Trek.
That's not true. There is a group of people that grew up on classic Trek.
Yeah, that's me. And
that's what I'm saying. And they raise their kids on it too. And that's why nobody's buying this shit.
Well, my kids hate this shit. But
I mean, we also have a situation now where nobody new's coming to the table, because none of this stuff either doesn't appeal to kids who have never been into it, or the kids that are already fans. They're fans because their parents were fans, and their parents introduced them to classic Trek, not this shit.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the thing is you ask Matt, who is this made for? Who are the fans? It's made for Star Trek fans, because you're not going to bring anybody else new into this. You're not going to get the Rick and Morty crowd. You're not, because nobody cares about Star Trek.
It's not the crowd that's into the live action stuff. So like Star Trek fans, yes, but like this is meant for like the Adult Swim crowd.
Why though? That's my big question. Why?
Because it's a market. It's a market that they haven't tapped into yet.
They're not going to get it. They're not going to. They haven't learned that in 10 years.
And then the show will get canceled. We won't have to worry about it.
I mean, it's a streaming show, so it has a different metric.
But instead, so then we wasted an animated show that could have been something great. That's my problem. We have an animated.
You're acting
have
like
a
you're
show-
paying for it, Tom. Who cares?
Yeah, I am paying for it through CBS All Access.
Why are you paying them?
It doesn't, because I don't go around the things. I don't do that shit.
because like
No,
us,
I mean,
Tom
like,
has to.
if like you hate Discovery, which I understand, you hate Picard, which I totally understand, and then you hate this. If
it wasn't for work, I wouldn't. I wouldn't.
Okay,
I would,
so you're doing it based just solely for the review sake of
at this point, yes.
Creating content. Okay.
At this point, yes. In the beginning, if I would, I would have given this one a shot. I would have given the first episode of Picard a shot. Our first few episodes. Discovery, I would have gave up after that first initial episode. There's no way I would have went past that if I didn't have to. Picard, I probably would have given about 3-4 episodes. This I would have given a shot simply because I would have been interested in seeing it, because I do love animation. But I feel like it's nothing but a wasted opportunity, because Trek is something that if you put it in animation, you can expand it so much farther than you ever did before. Look at how great the old Star Trek animated series, for how limited a budget they had on that show.
Yeah.
I mean, you could add something in that vein, and it didn't have to be necessarily serious, but it should have took Trek seriously.
I will
You
say
can have fun with the characters, but not like this.
Why people would not like this show. But I think that all that aside, in terms of what we're getting for new Star Trek, this is going in the right direction, in my opinion, at least, because like it's something that's fun. And one of the things I really enjoyed was by the end of the show, we have like our 4 core characters who are like the lower deck people. And I actually felt like I knew who these characters were by the end of it. And I was able to connect with them, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of their adventures. Whereas, like, if you look at something like Discovery, I couldn't tell you any of the bridge crew's name. In fact, they had to wait until the second season to actually introduce all the different characters in that show. And because of that, like, I feel like I'm a little bit more invested in Lower Decks than I ever was in Discovery or even Picard, because all the characters on Picard were just terrible as well. So, like I have some optimism for this show, and I think that it's going to find its audience within the Star Trek audience. And I'm one of those, like, I can't wait for the next episode.
Yeah, I
totally understand why there are people out there who would hate this show.
Go ahead, Vader. Go ahead.
Just perusing the socials, there are people out there that like this show. Now, the circle that I'm in my Twitterverse, I can't tell if they're just I don't know what the word I'm looking for is. If they're just spouting out that they like it just to make a point, or if they really like it, a lot of these people. But I do think there are people out there that genuinely like this show. For me, I'm not going to make a judgment yet. I want to see more than just the pilot episode. I want to get 2 or 3, 4 episodes in before I say whether I definitively am going to continue. I mean, I'm going to watch the whole series because for the show, but whether I like it or not, I'm still out, and I'm not going to say that yet or not. So
I guess we'll just do final thoughts. We've been talking for about an hour now. I feel like a lot of the people like Tom, who I've watched their videos and their critiques, and I completely understand it, and I respect your opinion on that kind of stuff. I feel like this could be wrong, but it's almost like they don't want anything change, any difference. They want everything to be the formulaic Star Trek. This is the classic. You have to stick with the classic, and if you do an offshoot of that, it has to be slightly off, but still be the classic Trek. I'm okay with a little bit of change. I'm okay with Star Trek to stretch its legs a little bit and explore these different genres. And if it doesn't work, then it'll be, oh, well, we tried that. It didn't take off. So we're going to, focus on something else for now. But for me, I didn't mind this show. I thought it was okay. I'll like Vader. I do want to see more before I make like a full judgment on it. But it was entertaining. And that's more than I can say for freaking Picard or Discovery. Like Discovery, again, I don't know any of the characters from Discovery except for Burnham, because she's on camera all the time. Like, they never introduce anybody. Pike was the only good thing about season 2, whereas this show, in just the first episode, I'm like, oh yeah, the cyborg dude and the overachiever, and like these are classic characters that I can kind of get attached to. So I want to see what they have in store for us in this season. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
I need these characters to grow on me a little bit. It's like I'm trying not to look at it through the rose-colored glasses. Like when Picard came out, you guys can attest. I really liked it when it first started, but man, by the time that series was done, I wanted to burn it with every kind of fire I could find, and it was just a trash fire. And I really don't want. I'm tired of bad Trek. I want Trek to be good, and I guess if there's a little bit of inkling of hope in there that maybe some of this can be salvaged, then I want it to happen. But I don't know if this is the show for it or not. So I guess we'll just have to see. So
why don't we go one by one and give what the one thing.
Well, can I just respond to one thing that Salty Nerd said real quick?
What's up?
I just want to speak up for fans. I know the Trek fans can be a real fickle bunch, but I think the original JJ Trek film proved that fans are able to handle some change as long as you give us a good story. So I don't think that's fair to pigeonhole the fans as saying that, oh, they're just being finicky because it's not exactly like every Trek. Because you could go through, TNG is so much different than what TOS was, and Deep Space Nine and Voyager did their own things, and Enterprise too. Even though they're all still technically in the same universe, there's no excuse. You can go all kinds of different places in this world, even do something like Discovery and make it work. But that's the thing, is they don't pay enough attention to that, and that's where the fans get pissed. Is like, we can handle a few changes, we can handle some differences, even the most finicky of fans, but give us a good story, give us good characters. And I think that's the one I just want to defend fans real quick on that. I think
that's totally fair. I'm not trying to attack fans as being like
I didn't think you were, but I know they have a reputation for being very finicky, though.
As any fan base does, especially Star Wars, Star Trek. Any huge fan base is going to have a visceral reaction to things that are different. But that's a good point about you said about the original series versus TNG. When TNG first started, there's some pushback on that. They're like, this isn't like the original series. Like, every time something happens, there's always this little like weird first 2 seasons or so where people are kind of wishy-washy on whether or not they like it, and then things start getting on their feet and they move forward. Unfortunately, we haven't really seen that with the current generation of Star Trek with like Discovery, because we're pushing season 3 and there's not really much good to say about it in my opinion. So it's tough nowadays with all the political bullcrap that's going on, that's being injected into our entertainment and stuff. But Star Trek has always done that to a certain extent with better storytelling and stuff. So at least in my opinion, I don't feel like this Lower Decks show was like overly preachy in any way. I mean, they of course had those like stereotypical characters, but as of right now, they haven't like done anything over the top that would kind of like make it not entertaining and more on like the preachy side. So I want to give it at least a little bit of credit in that direction for the first episode. Like, if you guys remember the season opening to Discovery, there was like blatant like hardcore feminist stuff where the only asshole on the crew was the dude, and then he ended up dying because he was a cocky jerk. Like, we didn't see that in this episode, in the first episode. So I'm happy with that.
My biggest problem with both Discovery and Picard was that they went in this very dark, adult, violent, sexual direction where it didn't feel like it was Star Trek. It felt like they were trying to do Battlestar Galactica with a Star Trek name to it, and it didn't resonate with me. It felt like it was something other than the Star Trek I wanted. Whereas with Lower Decks, I feel like it's Star Trek-y. It feels
it's
like
dick and fart jokes, though. It's just a trading in one for the other.
Really not. It
really is.
No, if you look at the story, how the story played out, it was a very traditional Star Trek.
How many times were the characters naked? How many jokes were there about naked characters? That fucking spider looks like a dick when she's spitting in and out. There's so many, like, dude, I think you got some blinders on, man. I love you to death, man.
There were lots of different kind of humor in the show.
Come on, if there was an episode where 2 guys walked into the holodeck and goes, show me a bunch of naked women doing aerobics, how many people would throw a fucking fit about that? Don't tell me that's not a dick joke. Go back and look at that scene. That scene is full of dicks.
I'm not
throughout
saying
the entire scene. Anna pointed it out.
I'm saying that there is a variety of humor in this show. Upon my rewatch, there's a lot of very clever dialogue in the show. There's a lot of situational humor, which I think is good, and there's a lot of nostalgic kind of Star Trek-y humor in it as well. And I don't think that okay, if you don't like dick and fart jokes, okay, I can understand that. But to me, the show just in general felt like a fun, optimistic, lighthearted Star Trek show.
I
And
did
that's
like the
something I hadn't
optimism. That was cool.
gotten in, like 15 years. And so like I was very happy with what I got.
But at
Because
the
it's so different from,
You
like,
know,
the-
when it comes to the holodeck stuff, it's like, yeah, the scene with all the naked guys working out in the gym was kind of weird. But I mean, come on. You think about it for a second. What do people do in the holodeck that Star Trek is just
I get
never
that,
showed
but my
us?
point is,
I mean, come on. I mean,
they
there was
referenced in
fucking
DS9, and DS9
I
Quark
get
has
that,
a
and that's
brothel
fine.
in his, you know, it's
But I
We're
think
crazy.
my point is sound is okay, you're trading murder Trek for fart and dick jokes. And if Matt's okay with that, fine, I guess. But I know there's not too many Star Trek fans that are going to think that's an upgrade. And I'm sorry, that whole scene. If that scene was reversed and it was two guys doing that right now, you know the uproar that would happen.
I mean, the
They
Orville
wouldn't
had
do
a
it, but-
whole episode based on Bortus and his. And
Yeah,
his,
but that was gay, so that was okay. See,
Oh,
that's
well.
my point. That's my point. Is I wasn't necessarily. I mean, like I said, I made the same point then. I think with that episode is if that was a straight situation, they'd be throwing a fit about it right
I
now.
will say, I think that holodeck scene that you're talking about was in line with Mariner's character. Like I could see her, you know, like, oh, in my off time, I want to look at Jack Dudes.
Well, she's the
working
one
out.
I have the most problems with because she is. And when I say Mikey Spock 2.0, I'm not kidding in like any
no,
facetious
she
way.
very much.
She
is.
very much is, like, because we spend the whole episode and you know it's coming from a mile away, just like every other character arc. When you come out and she's, I'm the perfectest, I'm the bestest in every way. And not only that, I'm the most pious, greatest person because I'm making sure these other people have what they need and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, yeah. That lost me at that point big time.
One other bitch I had about this show was the design of these Care Bear pig aliens.
Oh yeah, that didn't work for me either.
Not work for me at all. The design of those of aliens that they were making contact with was just completely not in the vein of Star Trek at all. So I mean, that is one serious bitch that I had. They did look like Care Bears with pig snouts to me. So I don't know. It was that seemed kind of weird.
I know. I will say that Mariner, like, I feel like the creators were kind of poking fun at the fact that like she, you know, is saying like I'm the best at everything. So like I feel like there's a self-awareness there that like the creators of the show know what the complaints are with like the live action stuff, and they're setting the stage to kind of play.
I
with
think
them.
you're giving them way too much credit, Matt.
It's possible. I won't dismiss that possibility.
Because they set it up that she was nothing but a fuck up through the whole episode, so you seen it coming from a mile away that she was going to be the bestest ever at everything, but she just chooses not to be.
You weren't here when we were going through her character. One of the things
No, I
really
missed that, sadly.
about the show was that you have this odd couple synergy going on between Boimler and Mariner, where you know it's Lemon and Mathau, it's Riggs and Murtaugh. She's like the manic, like street smart one. He's the kind of.
But it's an act, though. That's the problem.
I mean, like, I would need to have a few more episodes to, you know, kind of gauge this.
She's
thing,
doing it on purpose to piss her parents off.
The initial like kind of structure for comedy is there with that pairing, and that's not something that we've gotten in some of the other Trek shows. But anyway, guys, real quick, we're going to wrap this up. What I want to do is I want to go one by one, and I want you to give me your favorite part of the episode and your least favorite part of the episode. So, Alex, take it away.
Oh shoot! Favorite part. It's got to be the little love date thing while everything's going to hell, where they're trying to get to know each other. I really like that part. I like the callbacks. I like that it takes place in the TNG era and everything matches. Like it looks like it takes place in that era. So I appreciated that. Even the spacesuit. The spacesuits were the same ones that they had in First Contact, which I thought was really cool. Least favorite part, Vader mentioned, is the stupid like Care Bear alien things, and just I mean some of it worked, some of it didn't.
Salty stole my answers.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know. I can't remember like every detail about what I didn't get a chance to rewatch it before the stream. So I watched it last night, but that was it. I'm really concerned about the political preachiness. I really am. If they go overboard with it, right now it's on the line, I'm okay with it. But if they go overboard with these characters and they don't allow them to grow and they just stay these stereotypes, that's not going to work for me. But that's I'm not going to know until later on in the season. So,
all right, Vader, Favorite part, least favorite part.
And he took my answers.
Say
I
it
like
again.
I
Say it
like the
again.
throwbacks to the Next Generation. I like when they were going on the tour, when they was orienting her to the ship. It's just the Easter eggs and the throwbacks. It's the first episode, so I'm not going to be what.
I'm getting roasted
he's
in the
getting
chat.
destroyed. And like I said, I laughed super hard at the spider suckling the guy, and I'm sorry if it's a dick joke or offensive or whatever, but I laughed. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
I'm kind of a queer dude,
I was just pointing that out to Matt. That's all.
I laugh at dick and fart jokes, and I make dick and fart jokes all the time. It's just who I am. My dad's 85 years old, and he still wants me to pull his finger when he farts. So it's just the way it is. And but the Care Bears, I want better Care Bears. So.
All right, Tom.
Make them look like Smurfs.
Well, in defense, I will say that was the best joke in the show, Matt Vader. Yeah. The whole spider bit, but it was just the timing of it was off, and it was funnier in Rick and Morty already when I seen it the first time. That was the problem.
There too.
Yeah, and
at this one.
So actually, that was probably one of my favorite parts. But my least favorite parts is one of the ones that was Salty Nerd's favorite, and that was the scene in when the zombies are taking over and they just don't care about that just seems so. I mean. That's the airplane humor type stuff I'm talking about, which is fine if you're doing something like that, but it doesn't belong in Trek universe. That's just my opinion on that. It's fine in Spaceballs. It's fine in Airplane. You can do that kind of humor. It just doesn't belong here. There's plenty of stuff to play with in the Star Trek universe to have humor with that I think they wasted a lot of potential here with. Unfortunately,
maybe they'll have a Gorch on a Klingon next time. We'll laugh at that.
Well, if they can find things within this Trek universe that that you can kind of poke fun with that aren't too overly, like red shirt jokes, obviously, where everybody was afraid of those happening, or just getting too much into that, parody, self-referential type stuff. And what was the other? What did you call it, Matt? Which Airplane is like the type of comedy it is? That. It needs to get the fuck away from that.
Well, I think that Venture Brothers and Rick and Morty are kind of in the similar vein.
That's fine. They're their own things, though. That's the thing. And Rick and Morty is a parody of Back to the Future and stuff. So that's the thing. It's already this is Star Trek, though.
So my favorite part of the show, the whole spider cow thing was kind of like humorous to me because Boymer's first instinct is like, let's phaser this thing, and Mariner's like, no, that'll spoil her milk, and he's like, it has milk, and she's like, I don't know, probably. And then like later on when it's suckling him, she's about to phaser it, and the pig farmers come out and they're like, no, don't phaser it, it'll spoil her milk. and then like as she like yells at him, it's like, just go with it, like she's just suckling you. And then she turns to the pig farmer and she's like, hey, you got any of that milk? Like the whole sequence just had me rolling on the floor. Like I laughed both times I watched the show.
That makes me worried about you, Matt.
I just found it.
That is like such
funny, and especially when Boymer like comes out of that, he's just like, my bones.
That was possibly one of the funnier parts, but like her whole bit with the milk and some of the other stuff was just too cringe.
I liked it. Like I thought it was very clever dialogue.
I didn't think so.
Favorite part of the show was probably the opening. I did not like the whole like drunk Mariner throwing around like the blade and like cutting into his leg and stuff like that. I was very worried after that scene, but overall, like I thought the show was a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of it. All right, guys. Well, Alex, why don't you take us out? Let them know where they can find some Salty Nerd podcast and some merchandise and all that good stuff.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening to our crazy opinions. I know most of the people in the chat and Tom disagree completely, but that's all right. That's what we're here for. We're here for counter content and giving our opinions.
I'm just worried about Matt.
he's having some issues, that's for sure, right?
I think do you smell toast?
If you guys want to hear more of our content, you can go to saltynerdvideo.com. That's our YouTube channel where you're at right now. We have a ton of videos. We have all of our podcasts are available, split up into short little digestible segments that you guys can listen to at your leisure, so you don't have to listen to a whole 2-hour podcast or something. And if you'd like to subscribe, saltynerdpodcast.com will take you to whatever podcast platform that you guys use, whether it's Google Play or iTunes. And if you'd like to get some of our shirts, we are constantly putting out new designs. It's saltynerdstore.com. We've got Pulp Fiction. We've got a couple podcast references. We're also doing what else we got? Oh, we got Matt Vader's shirt. That's what we're featuring this week is Matt Vader's t-shirt. It says everything is stupid. It's pretty fun. Anyway, so help support the podcast. If you want to listen to more, go to those places and check us out. And around the table real quick, where can we find everybody on the social medias? Starting with Tom, where can we find you, man?
Midnight's Edge After Dark, and hanging out all kinds of different places.
Right on. Thanks for stopping by, man. Really appreciate having
no problem.
else.
Hopefully I wasn't too harsh on you guys.
No. Like I said, I wanted somebody who was the opposite because otherwise it would just be a big circle jerk. Matt Vader, where can they find you on the socials?
Right there.
Right there?
Right there.
At Matt Vader. What are you doing on Twitch, man?
Just hit affiliate a couple weeks ago, slowly building that community up. Playing some games, Blizzard World of Warcraft and Lightbound and some other stuff when I get around to it. So yeah.
Right on.
Come join my stuff over there. I appreciate it.
All right. And Matthew Kadish, Evil Genius, author extraordinaire. Where can they find you?
At Matthew Kadish, Kadish. And if you want to check out my books, you can go to kadishbooks.com and they'll take you right to my Amazon page. I want to thank Tom for coming out and joining our stream. Tom, it's always a pleasure.
Sorry I was just late.
Oh, it's okay. Life happens. So everyone,
oh God, everybody was out and about today. You'd think like everybody was acting like they've been shut in for like the last 6 months. Oh, never mind.
Oh yeah.
So
thank you.
I want to thank everyone for coming into the chat and watching the stream. We're going to do this every Saturday morning at 11 o'clock Pacific time. So if you hated what we had to say, come back and let us know. Because
normally these guys are very good at their jobs and know what they're talking about. I think they got into something like sniffing some glue, maybe. I don't know.
Maybe we'll expand it to other cartoon shows in the future. So,
like I said at the beginning, we're trying to expand our content to other platforms. We've got our podcast and it's growing really well. We're super happy with it, but we need to break into other communities. So we're trying to do this. We're going to be doing this every Saturday, 11 a.m. Pacific time. We're going to be talking about each episode as it comes out. So, like Matt said, if you hate everything that we had to say, join us again next week, and maybe this show won't grow on us quite as much, and you'll get to be vindicated and say, I fucking told you so.
And be sure to check out our merch store at saltynerdstore.com because Alex needs to afford new internet. And so we need to fund his endeavors.
It's true.
So anyway,
all right, guys.
thanks for coming by, and we will catch you all later.
Thanks, guys.